Hey folks, welcome to Game Time with John Eads. So glad to be with you. This is the first episode of this podcast here on WAFB. You can catch this on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12:30. For more information, go to WAFB.com, check out our 9 News app, and just find us on YouTube at WAFB. This is a new podcast we're starting, and it's going to focus on LSU, Southern, the local high school sports, the Saints, Southeastern Louisiana. It's going to be 20-minute episodes, and what we're trying to really do is just expand our coverage beyond the stories we cover and the stuff that we tweet out during the day, and really just give you guys insight on the teams, the coaches, the players, so you guys can stay up to date. So today we're going to start with a lot of LSU, a little bit of Saints, and again, this will be twice a week, and what we're really going to focus on leading up to the season for LSU and the Saints is just preview coverage, letting you guys get to know the team and things of that nature. I'll intro who I am real quick here. I'm John Eads. I just started at WAFB a couple weeks ago, and this is one of the big reasons why I wanted to come and work here was to do this podcast and really get this going and start this. I'm originally from Michigan, went to college in New York, but a big football fan, big sports fan, obviously. You could find me during the week on the 5 and 6 o'clock newscast doing sports stories, usually features. I also anchor the Sunday news as well, and in addition to doing this, which we just started and we're super excited about. Again, it'll be twice a week, 12:30 on Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to try to get it in a live stream format coming up pretty soon, and we got a lot of fun ideas for how we're going to accomplish that. But we got 4 topics today, each spanning 5 minutes, and let's get into our first one. So, LSU football. Lots to cover here. What I want to start with today is what the expectations are for this team. We're going to attack this like a tree, like a trunk. There's so many different layers to how we finally get into the inside of the tree, right? We're going to start from the outside and work our way in. So what are the expectations this year for LSU football? I mean, you hear about it every single day. You hear about it from Coach Kelly, the players, the media. I guess that'd be us. And it is, the fans expect, elites. 10-4 season last year in Brian Kelly's first year, which was really good considering the fact that the 2 years prior to that, LSU had gone just 11-12. So put that into perspective. 11 wins over the prior 2 seasons, 10 wins last year in Brian Kelly's first year. I think that exceeded most people's expectations, but there's that word again, expectation. The expectation here at LSU is elites. That's what this team needs to be this year, and it's not like we're expecting something to happen with this team that necessarily can't happen. This team has so much talent that this is a year that this team can win the national title. And when you think about elite, you think about national title. You think about college football playoff. You think about competing for that playoff, for that national championship. That's what this team can do this year. They're a preseason top 10 team. Pretty much everywhere you look. If you look at the college football playoff odds right now, they're 5th at plus 1,100, which means they're the 5th best team, I guess you could say, in college football, and most people expect them to be right there in terms of the college football playoff field. Now, the SEC media days, LSU was picked 2nd in the West behind Alabama. Little controversial there, but both teams got some votes. Everybody's expecting this team to be good. But can you go from good to elites? We heard Brian Kelly speak at the Baton Rouge Rotary Club recently, and he must have said this word like 50 times. Elite, elite, elite. How do we get there? What he said is the team really focused on doing the smaller things during training camp, the things that you don't see on the field on Saturdays, some things like leadership, things like accountability. And I'm very curious to see if those things end up paying off and working out this fall and showing up not only on the scoreboard, but in the win-loss column. Because, again, the expectation for this team this year is elite. I'm a big proponent of Phil Steele's magazine for college football. You should go get a copy if you don't have one already. He's got a metric in there for the most returning all-conference points. So basically, it's a point system based on the amount of talent you have coming back. LSU got 41 points. Now, that came because LSU has 2 returning All-Americans, 3 first-team All-SEC players, a second-team SEC player, and a third-team as well. Again, these are all according to Phil Steele. I know LSU had 11 All-SEC players for media days. 41 returning points, most in the conference, 5th in the nation. What that means, basically, is that this is the most talented team in the SEC. So, if you've got the most talent in the SEC, you should not only win the SEC, at least the SEC West, and be a big contender against Georgia, whoever from the East, you should then be a contender for the national championship and make the college football playoff field. So I'm not up here preaching something that's not possible. This team has the talent. They've got the coaching. Brian Kelly won 10 games in his first year at LSU. A lot of people were skeptical about how he would translate coming from the independent at Notre Dame to the talent and playing the rigorous schedule that SEC teams have to play. He proved he could do it last year. Got off to a somewhat rough start, then beat Alabama, won 10 games, finished the season pretty well, made the SEC title game in year one. This team has everything it needs to be that elite team this year, and Brian Kelly knows it. This team knows it. Now it's time to see if they can actually go out and do it and elevate themselves from good, very good, to elite, which is what we expect from the LSU Tigers every single year on the football field. Now, how about some guys that will get this team from good to elite? Most important players this year for LSU. I've got 6 of them for you. First one's probably pretty obvious. Quarterback. It's the most important position on the field. Jaden Daniels. He's the top returning quarterback in the SEC. He's the top quarterback in the conference, period. He was picked first team All-SEC by the media. Everywhere you look, really, doesn't matter what magazine you pull up, what social media app you pull, everybody's talking about this guy, and you should be, because he was a Heisman favorite last year. He came over from Arizona State, and he was really, really good. He was second in LSU history for what he did last year in terms of total yards, about 3,000 yards passing. He could grow there this year, but also 885 yards rushing. This guy is the definition of what a dual threat quarterback is, and you cannot replace him. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Garrett Nussmeier, he looked really good in the SEC title with all those passing yards against Georgia, and he did look good. I'm not going to take that away from him. I'm not going to take that away from him. He did look good, but you can't replace a leader and a producer like Jaden Daniels is. The guy led the team last year in rushing as the quarterback. Usually the running backs do that. And I know it was kind of a rotating cast of characters at that position last year, but still, you take this guy off the field, your team is completely different. Everybody backs Jaden Daniels. Everybody wants him as the quarterback, and he proved last year he can be a high-level starter. He flashed stuff that he didn't show at Arizona State. He can compete week after week in the SEC. And here's something else. He's actually LSU's first returning starter at quarterback since Joe Burrow in 2019. I know that's not that long ago, but just think of 2020 and 2021. Just all the turnover at that quarterback position. It's so important to bring back a guy that knows the system, has played with the team, and really just has a familiarity with everything going on around him. So that's Jaden Daniels. He's the most important player, one of the most important players. I probably would say he's the most important player on this team. All right, moving on. Who's he throwing to? Well, Malik Neighbors, a guy that right now is the 3rd best wide receiver prospect in the upcoming draft, according to Phil Steele, and probably guys like Todd McShay and other guys that cover the draft. He leads all SEC wide receivers, coming back at least, in yardage, over 1,000 last year, and yards per catch, 14. Last year when Kayshon Boutte had all those issues that he had, he couldn't seem to find a consistency. Neighbors was like, all right, I'll take those catches, I'll take those reps, and he ran with all of those. He was spectacular last year. He had 128 yards in the SEC title game. He stepped up and played big in those big games, and I expect a lot from Malik Neighbors this year. He's going to be all over the field, slot, outside. As many times as they can get the football in this guy's hands, they're going to do that. So Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, and then a couple more offensive guys. Mason Taylor, 4th-team All-American via Phil Steele. You can't replace this guy. You look at the guys behind Taylor in the tight end room, none of them have really seen much of any, production, play, snaps, any of that. So you take not only an All-American level talent off the field like Taylor, you need this guy on the field for run blocking, for receiving. You just simply don't have someone that's remotely close to the level of talent that he is. So what most important players are supposed to be is if they're not playing, they're not on the field, you can't replace them. Taylor's one of those guys. 3rd leading receiver last year, over 400 yards, and of course that clutch 2-point conversion against Alabama to help them win that game, which was just spectacular. And again, nobody can replace this guy. So I know he was only like the 3rd leading receiver on the team last year, and he may not be, I guess, for lack of a better term, a sexy name on the offense, but he should be because he's an All-American. But also, if he goes down with an injury or he can't play for whatever reason, you got nobody that can step in for him and do so well. All right, how about offensive line? Will Campbell Had an excellent season last year as a freshman. He's a third-team All-American this year. Had 13 starts last year. And here's something else. He's on the All-Meathead radio team. We got a couple of guys on that list. What is that? So it's something Phil Steele does, and he gives it to guys that are just beasts in the weight room, excellent team leaders, and really just give their all to the football team. So there's only a handful of guys that are picked to this team preseason, and he was one of them. So it really just shows you this guy is mature beyond his years, not only as a football player, but as a leader and a guy with character. So, and think about this. Last year, LSU had 2 years ago, 9 different offensive line combinations in 2021. They just could not find any consistency in the trenches, really. Even last year, for the first 6 games of the year, they had 5 different offensive line combinations. I was watching the Mississippi State game yesterday. Just didn't seem like they were getting a lot of push up front. And it didn't seem like they had a lot of cohesion in terms of pass protection, run blocking. But you got a guy like Will Campbell at left tackle who's going to anchor this offensive line. That's a guy you can't replace. People are talking about this guy as an NFL draft pick right now. And he's only going to be a sophomore. He's still got 1 more year to play before he can go pro. So he's very important. I wanted to put Emory Jones on this list, but I wanted to keep the list somewhat small. Emory Jones is super important, too, over at right tackle. Those two, the first 2 true freshmen to start at tackle, I think, ever for LSU, if not for a long time. That doesn't happen very often. So, yeah, that's true. My guy Spencer here telling me it is true. First 2 to ever start at offensive tackle as true freshmen last season. All right, 2 more. Defensive side of the ball. You can probably guess who these guys are. How about Mekhi Wingo, third-team All-American? Again, another guy on that Radiohead team, a guy that just gets after the weight room, is a great team leader. He was a representative for LSU at SEC Media Days. Not many people, I don't think, expected him to do what he did last year. He came over from Missouri, was a freshman All-SEC player, so he put up some numbers. He got some snaps, but this dude just broke out last year. He comes back, he's an All-American, and he's the number 4 defensive tackle prospect. Unbelievable. He stepped up in the place of Mason Smith last year when he went down with that really unfortunate injury in the opener against Florida State, and he just absolutely ran with that opportunity and took full advantage of it, and he's a guy you cannot replace at D-tackle. You got Mason Smith back. Now, those two are playing alongside each other. That's going to be fun. You need both those guys on the field at the same time. Smith's not on this list because he didn't have a chance to play last year. Last one, Harold Perkins. Linebacker, first-team All-American, and a guy that just, he took over games last year. He set the LSU school record with 4 sacks in a game to kind of paint the picture of what he can do for you. Coming back, he's second among SEC defenders with 13 TFLs. I think he leads all returnees in sacks. So this guy is just a problem. Such a disruption for LSU's defense. You can't replace his speed and athleticism in the middle of this defense. You don't see it very often. You really don't. So really take advantage of watching this guy play while he's here. Harold Perkins, our 6th and final most important player for LSU this upcoming season. This thing went off. I don't know why it did that. It's all good. We'll keep rolling. There we go. All right. All right, 2 more segments halfway through. Again, check us out, WAFB.com, 9 News app, and WAFB on YouTube. So what we're talking about now is LSU transfers to know. I couldn't really come up with a better name for it, so we're just going with that, transfers to know. We got 5 here. These are guys that are projected to start for LSU this season, according to Phil Steele. And why this matters is because he talks with all the head coaches. He spoke with Brian Kelly. He got his version of the depth chart after spring practice and heading into the fall. So let's start with this. Logan Diggs, a guy that committed to LSU a couple months ago, only a sophomore, played running back at Notre Dame. He left because he wants more playing time, and really he wants more touches because they got another guy there, Audric Estime with the Fighting Irish, and he started to really take over the lion's share of the carries. But he started 5 games at Notre Dame, over 1,000 yards on the ground, about 5 per carry in 2 seasons there. Former pretty big-time recruit, borderline 3/4 star. He's got the pedigree, played for Notre Dame, had a great offensive line. He knows how to tilt the rock. He's a guy with some pretty good wiggle, good movement, but also power. He can really put his head down and run you over. So Diggs could be the guy that emerges as the starter at the running back spot. And you think back to last year, there were like 3 or 4 different guys, Goodwin, John Emery, Noah Kane. Nobody really took over as the starter in the running back room. So, perhaps Diggs can be that guy coming over from Notre Dame. All right, another one. Ovi Ogufu. That's a fun name. I like it. He comes over from Texas. He's a senior defensive end. What's interesting about this guy is he started his career at Notre Dame, then transferred to Texas, but he comes from a place nearby where I'm from. I'm from outside Detroit, Michigan. Agufu's from Farmington, which is about 15 minutes or so outside Detroit. Played at Harrison High School, which is a powerhouse up in Michigan. And he committed to Notre Dame. He was way back in the class of 2018. So this is an older guy, but a really good athlete. I watched his tape in the Alabama game when Texas and Bama played last year. Wow, he was a problem. I mean, off the edge, up the middle, blitzes, run support. He was doing it all. I mean, he was getting to Bryce Young. Remember that game? It was 20-19. Alabama snuck out of there with a win because Quinn Ewers went down. They played really well. Agufu individually played really well. 20 starts, about 100 tackles, 14 TFLs at Texas. Even got a shout-out for Brian Kelly, too, in his speech to the Rotary Club. So look out for Agufu. I think he's wearing number 18, same as B.J. Ojulari last year. This guy is just like B.J. Ojulari, the same type of player, and he was really good for the Tigers last year. All right, we got a couple more defensive players. Omar Spates. He comes from Oregon State. Big dude, but he can also fly. Him and Harold Perkins, they're going to be fun to watch. I'm low-key an Oregon State fan because I play this video game and I rebuilt that team in NCAA 14, so I kind of like have taken on their fandom a little bit. I saw this guy play a lot because I was tuning into their games. Sideline to sideline, he can move, and he can thump you in the run game too. Like, I don't think people understand how big of a pickup this was. He was a first-team All-Pac-12 linebacker. He's only coming to the SEC because he wants a bigger spotlight. He wants to play the better teams. He wants to play in the bigger games. That's why he's here. This dude could play on any team in America. He could probably play in the NFL right now. And he's playing here at LSU. So Perkins, Spates at the linebacker spot, that's going to be insanely fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play over 300 career tackles. His resume is like this long. Okay, so I don't need to read it to you. Just know this guy's a really good football player. Okay, two more. Zy Alexander, bit of a hometown kid, comes in from southeastern Louisiana. He's a corner, 4-star transfer cornerback in the portal, FCS All-American too in Hammond, America. Started 29 games, about 100 tackles, 9 picks, so he can make plays when he's got the ball in his hands, and he knows how to get the ball in his hands as DB. What's interesting, though, is that I saw something yesterday. Jacques Doucet also works here, tweeted this. He asked the southeastern Louisiana head coach if he thinks that Alexander's ready for the big step up from the SEC, or I should say the FCS to the SEC. It's obviously a big jump. He didn't seem to think so for a full-time role, which was interesting. But Phil Steele has Alexander penciled in as a starter at corner. But they also got Denver Harris. They got another guy who I'm going to mention in just a minute. And they have other guys they pulled out of the portal. So really it's like 4 or 5 guys that are competing for the 2 corner spots. But seems like Alexander's going to claim one of those, at least to start. This could be a position battle that moves into the season where if someone plays bad week 1, week 2, they make a switch. We'll see. All right, another corner, and the final for our transfers to know is Deuce Chestnut, Jr. He comes from Syracuse, where I went to college. So I've seen this guy play a lot of football. He was really good as a freshman. In fact, he was a freshman All-American. Guys tried to test him. They're like, oh, yeah, he's a freshman. Let's throw some jump balls his side of the field. Let's wake him up a little bit. And he responded. He really did. He was really, really good. Last year, his stats weren't great. He had a handful of PBUs. I think he had 1 pick. They weren't throwing to him that much because, obviously, he's a freshman All-American. Why would you want to throw to a guy like that? So he's a really talented player. He was a borderline 4-star recruit, which for Syracuse, that was a big deal when we got him because we've gotten like maybe 5 or 6 4-star recruits ever. So another guy to know, 3rd-team All-ACC a couple seasons ago, played over 1,400 career snaps at the college level. You can't replace that. He has the experience. He's played in the big games. I know it may not seem like it, but the ACC is a pretty good conference, and he's played against teams like Clemson and North Carolina, other teams like that. So another guy to keep an eye on for the starting cornerback spot, Zy Alexander, Deuce Chestnut. And we'll wrap up with this. Let's talk Saints. It's not necessarily good Saints talk. Alvin Kamara. Just want to talk about his suspension. So he had a chance to meet with Roger Goodell in person, which I think is good, to kind of just go over his situation. Of course, he had that whole fight in Las Vegas recently, and he's trying to work his way through that. It was last year, actually. Trying to work his way through that, settle that. Ian Rappaport reported today, he works for NFL Network, that Kamara is expected to miss a portion of the upcoming season, whether that be 2 games, 3 games, 4 games we don't necessarily know, but he is expected to be out for a little bit of this upcoming year. And that's a big loss, obviously. I mean, Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr, that marriage was going to be very good, because if you saw Carr play in Las Vegas, he had Kenyon Drake, or Josh Jacobs as his running back, and he has a very similar skill set to Alvin Kamara. He's a good runner, also a good receiver, though, out of the backfield. Kamara is that and then some, obviously. Had about 900 yards on the ground last year, a couple of touchdowns, but 57 receptions, 490 yards through the air. So, obviously, if you play fantasy football, you're going to want this guy when he comes back, obviously. He's a really talented offensive player. He really was primed to have a big role for this team this year, obviously, like he has for the past several years. But especially as you're bringing in a new quarterback in Derek Carr, you want a guy like Kamara available every game of the year to be that security blanket and just that source of offense that you need. So, again, he's expected to miss some of the season. Maybe it'll be the first handful of games. The Saints play the Titans week 1, the Panthers week 2, Green Bay, and then Tampa Bay. So, could be a harder schedule, but still, you want to come out hot. You want to set the tone for the season, and you're not going to be doing that at full strength, it seems like. So we'll have to stay tuned on what not having Kamara means and how long he's going to be out for, whether that be half the season or 3/4 of the season, maybe just a couple of games. Here's who you've got in his place, though. Jamal Williams, he comes from Detroit. Really loved watching him play last year for the Lions, who actually had a good year for once. We went 0-16 not too long ago. Usually average about maybe 5 or 6 wins. We had a good year last year. And Williams is a big reason why. He set the franchise record for the most rushing touchdowns in a single season with 17, I believe it was. You know whose record he broke? Barry Sanders. Yeah, Barry Sanders. He broke his record for rushing touchdowns in a season. So this guy's really good. You give him the ball inside the 10, he's got a nose for the end zone. He will get there. He's not necessarily a home run hitting running back, but he knows how to punch the ball in the end zone. And when you don't have Alvin Kamara, that is a premium, really, points. The difference between 7 and 3, y'all know if you play football, you know football. It's pretty darn big. You've also got Kendre Miller. I really like this kid, too. He's a rookie, comes from TCU. He was drafted pretty late, and that's how running backs get drafted nowadays. The value is just so low, but he's really good. I'm a Michigan fan as well. I told you I'm from Michigan. Watched him play in the college football playoff. He ripped up Michigan's defense. Big guy, former linebacker, converted to running back, bowling ball type dude with really good agility, though. He's really, he can do it all. A do-it-all running back, truly, is Kendre Miller. So if Kamara's out, Williams and Miller should be able to hold things down. You don't have the receiving threat out of the back for that Kamara is at all. Williams can't do that. Miller can't do that. But you've at least got some guys that can tote the rock and find a way to punch the ball into the end zone. So, all is not lost, but just can you fill that role well enough and maybe squeak out a couple of W's until Kamara can come back? That's really the name of the game. So, again, stay tuned on the Kamara news. We'll see how long that suspension will be. Ian Rappaport saying there will be a suspension, so we do expect one. We just don't know how long it will be. And we'll, of course, have continued coverage of training camp as well on WAFB.com and the 9 News app. All right, that's going to wrap it up for episode 1 of Game Time. Was that fun or what? I had a lot of fun. We talked a lot of LSU, a little bit of Saints. Again, check us out, 9 News app, WAFB.com, WAFB on YouTube, and follow my social media account. I didn't say that off the top. At John Eads, WAFB on Twitter, John Eads on Facebook, and I have an Instagram page as well. It's John Eads TV. So we're posting content on there from this show. You can catch the cut-ups on YouTube. And we'll be back next week on Tuesday and Thursday with more episodes. So be sure to join us then and catch those episodes. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you all in the next episode. Thanks a lot for tuning in.